and also an honor to give this demonstration. You'll have to forgive me if I'm a little nervous. I don't know why I get nervous, but I get nervous. I'm from Pennsylvania, as I said. I went to the Philadelphia College of Art and graduated in '49. I worked in New York City for 16 years as an art director. And some of the things that I will show you, I learned from my days as an art director. Those were the days before dye markers. So we had to do all our design work and illustrating for the client using pastels. So we dreamed up certain ways to save time, and when you save time, you save money. This morning I made a little thumbnail, and I love things with lots of texture, and I love things that are old. I guess the reason for that is because I'm old myself. And I come from an area of the country where there are a lot of barns and old walls and stuff that you would see on old Pennsylvania Dutch farms. So this afternoon I'm going to do a pastel with some vegetables in it and a cement wall. Now last year I had a painting here of turnips on a cement wall, and I'm going to do one similar to that. Because in that painting I used quite a few of these tissue paper templates. So during this demonstration, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And remember, I'm Bill Persa. Mr. Persa was my father. So if it's all right with you, if you don't have any questions, I'll begin. Are there any questions? Okay. Well, I start off, I'm using a thin sheet of Strathmore charcoal and pastel paper. It comes in pads of different colors. And to me, it doesn't make a difference as to which color I work on. Sometimes I prefer to work on a color that is entirely different than the actual painting will be. And I do a lot of blending. I use new pastels. I use Rembrandt Talent soft pastels, and I use these Carbostello pencils. Because the type of work I do is very tight, and the edges have to be very sharp. I will start by doing a little transferring of this thumbnail that I did. How many of you are familiar with turnips?
I saw you last year.
Did you ever really look at one close? They're beautiful things. And you know, the one thing about being an artist is the fact that an artist always keeps learning because he looks. The average person will look at a turnip and say, well, it's a turnip, so what? But if you look at a turnip very closely, you'll never see two of the same kind, either in coloration or in shape or in root structure. Now, I know turnips pretty well because I've done quite a few of them. So if you bear with me, I'll start my sketch here. Now I'm going to put a turnip here with the root structure in the light. And I hope I can finish this pastel before time is up for me. for the time being, I'm gonna leave this one turnip out. Now, the next thing I do then, once I get my sketch in there, I wish I'd keep cooled down a little bit.
What is it that you're drawing with?
Pardon me?
What is it that you're drawing with? Pencil.
What carbon?
What are you drawing with?
Oh, I'm using a white Conte pencil. I have a Carbothello too, but I'm trying to save that because I use that quite a bit. And as you can see, some of these colors I hardly ever use. More of my colors are tended towards the earth colors. Then I'll take a piece of regular tracing paper. I'll draw this more accurately because I'm going to cut this template out. Now I draw only to the top of the turnip because I can't cut a very small area of the tissue and then smudge in the way I can without tearing the paper. So I cut the turnips off at an area where there's still enough tracing paper that I don't have to worry about tearing it. I put that aside. And I'm going to have a fairly dark background. I find new pastels are sometimes a little better to work with because they're a little harder, in fact quite a bit harder than the regular soft pastels. And they don't throw off as much dust.
What kind of paper are you working on?
Strathmore 100% rag,
Thank you.
charcoal and pastel paper.
Is that paper patterned on both sides?
Pardon me?
Is that paper patterned?
Yes, it is, only the one side is a little more, it shows a little bit more of the texture in it than the other side. It has a sort of a linear effect to it, and it's
What you're
very,
working on,
yes, it does. Now, I'm using the smoother side because I'm going to be working on a cement wall. However, if I was doing something with wood, which has a lot of grains in it, it's very good for that because after you get a certain color and a value down, all you have to do is run a darker pastel in a flat way like this and just rub it over lightly, and it picks up all those little innuendos that you want when you're creating wood.
Do you have a concept of what your whole picture is going to look like?
Oh, yes, yeah. I do an awful lot of small thumbnails. I must have a couple thousand of these small pencil thumbnails. I'm gonna warm up the background color slightly.
What is that, a yellow ochre?
Yeah, it's a yellow ochre and I've used the gray. Then I use my finger to smudge it. And I really rub the pastel into the paper. And I'll put this aside. Now, cut my template now. And for this, I use an X-Acto knife.
like to know what's the purpose of the tracing.
Well, you'll see in a minute now. Now, I have two templates here, a positive one and a negative one. I'll take this template and place the positive one over my drawing, like so, and I'll tape it down.
Do you ever use Frisket for this, or do you always use tracing paper?
Pardon me?
Do you ever use Frisket for doing this, or do you always use tracing paper?
No, I use tracing paper because it's nice and thin, and you can see your underdrawing. And now I'll smudge up Now, you'll find that when you have a dark background and you have things in sharp focus, the edge that hits the light, or the edge that the light hits, in order to accentuate that lightness, I always make the color slightly darker at that edge. And in direct reverse on the shadow side, if it's in deep shadow, I will lighten the background just around the edge, very small area, maybe no more than 1/8 of an inch. And that accentuates the lighting and gives it a three-dimensional look. You can almost reach out and if this thing works properly, you'll have a feeling that as you're looking at the painting, you can almost reach out and grab those turnips. Now, by using the tracing paper, you get a nice sharp edge to whatever you're painting. Now I will take the negative template, and clean up those edges. I'll tape this down. I'll take my kneaded eraser. And I have a fairly sharp image there. Now the root structure of a turnip has a sort of it's a mixture of, depending on how old the cut is, sometimes it'll still maintain a slight tone of green, and then the rest of it is starting to turn into the earth colors, the ochres and the raw siennas. Now we come into our turnip color. Since the root structure cut is done at the bottom of the turnip, and most times you'll see most of the purplish color at the bottom of the turnip. And that will vary from night to day. Some you'll see with color going up at least 2/3, some you'll see with 1/3, some you'll see with just a slight touch of purple. Every one of them varies. Now I'm going to have the light coming from this end here. Now we want to tone down this very bright purple, and we're going to gray it down slightly.
Is that a gray you're adding?
Yeah, this is a gray. It's a warm gray. Now here again I will use my template. It's darker in here. Now I will switch over to my pastels here, my pencils.
Where's that?
This is a sort of a dark Indian red. Reddest thing that was ever invented.
Right, for everything.
Do you ever use a Q-tip for spreading the cookie?
A toothpick?
Q-tip.
No. Well, I have, I don't know where I got, some friend of mine gave me these, from a doctor's office, so I guess it's similar. I don't use them too often.
Swabs. Takes off a lot of calories.
Lighting's not that great.
What?
The lighting.
Here.
Our turnips are loaded with little blemishes. gonna introduce a slight bit of green into this root structure. And sometimes,
Is that a blue you use before that?
that's an olive green. And sometimes you'll notice on a turnip that the green area of the root structure that was cut still wants to grow. So I'm gonna stick one of those in here. Now here's an area where, as I mentioned before, where a very dark hits a very highlighted area that you accentuate it slightly. All right, now I'm gonna give that area of the painting a dash of fixative. Of course, this is poisonous, but who cares?
Is that workable or final?
Workable. I better get going. And I'm gonna let that dry thoroughly and work on this bottom area of the wall. Now, I'm not worried about this upper line. I'm leaving that kind of fuzzy because when I hope I get to it, when I get to the final touch, I'm going to have a very severe, strong, late summer afternoon sunlight hitting the top of this wall and the turnips. I did a painting, a watercolor painting for a volunteer fire company 2 years ago up in Slatington, Pennsylvania. That used to be an area where they mined slate. That's why, of course, the name Slatington. What could they call it? And they have a volunteer fireman statue there. That's a famous landmark. So one night I went up to my club up there, the Moose, and I had a little bit too much to drink, and I volunteered to do a painting of that statue. So I went up to take pictures of the statue, and I pulled into the Moose parking lot, and it was a late July afternoon. And I pulled in and I see this little cement wall about 3 feet high on one edge of the parking lot. And I had my camera with me, naturally. And I got out and I laid down on the ground to take a head-on shot of this low wall. And I remember a couple people pulling in with their cars. They must have thought, who is this nut? But I took some shots of that wall, and it's just an old cement wall that had a lot of cracks in it, and crevices and rust marks. And I've been fascinated with stone walls ever since, and cement walls. And really, as an artist, I feel that if you study something hard enough and really look into it, you learn so much about what things are all about, what goes into it, what made it. And as old as those things are, to me, they still kind of have a certain life to them. So that's what this wall is gonna be based on. And I've done quite a few pastel and watercolor paintings with my own versions of cement walls, and I enjoy every one of them, because when I create a thing, I'm creating it based on what I learned by observing that wall. And I suppose all of you are artists, or I hope you are. You really, as an artist is a very lucky person, I think, because they're able to see so much more that the average person just looks at and walks by and couldn't care one way or another about it. Now here again, I'm rubbing into the texture of the paper. I'm going to give this wall just a slight bit of rust in it. Like when it was poured, there was some metal in it, and down through the years, it's rusted away. Let's see, what composition is here. All right, now we'll give this a shot of Fixative because we have a good base to work on there. I found out one thing about Fixative with all my years of using it. And when you're doing a pastel painting, it's all right to use the Fixative up to a certain point. I did a pastel painting of a barn siding with poison ivy growing out of it. And mistakenly, I sprayed the thing when I was all done. And I lost all the beautiful gradations in there, and I practically had to rework the whole thing. So I get to the point where I use spray, and then I stop.
Mr. Persa, would you like to take a 10-minute break?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And if you're willing to stay, I'll stay beyond the 4 o'clock time.
You would like him to call out his name?
Yeah, we gotta say they're very different.
Mr. Persa, would you explain to them the colors you use because they say they can't quite tell from the monitor?
The monitor colors are entirely different from what we were.
Why is that?
It was because they dim the lights and they changed the lighting.
It's still gonna be different. Oh, I see. They were different when the lights were on. Did you wipe that?
Mr. Persa has been graciously consented that you can take chances on the painting. He will have finished by 4-ish.
20 minutes?
Is that what it is?
No, I have 325.
325 is right.
So if you care to get some chances, we will not interrupt him, but they're $2 a piece.
Something.
But to take a chance, we're not gonna stand putting that.
And it'll be drawn at the end of the session today.
Okay.
All righty?
Are we ready?
Yes.
Is everybody here?
Yeah.
Who's absent, raise your hand. I used to do that in school. The kids didn't think it was funny. I don't think it's funny. Well, anyhow, here we go. Now, here's where I'm going to put some texture into this wall. I'm going to have a secondary ledge coming here towards the bottom of the composition.
What color is that you use?
This is a very warm, dark gray. I'm going to add a slight bit of sort of a dark aqua blue in certain areas.
Gordon, do you folks at the end see the TV well enough?
Now I'm going to create my own crack and tear in this wall. And to counterbalance the composition, I'm going to put the general mass of the cracked area in this area here. I'm using a lighter gray. When they build these stone walls, they usually make a, what do they call it, a form with wood. Sometimes the pieces of wood that they use is very rough, and it shows some grains in it. And when it's poured against those grains and the wood is removed, the cement will have some of those grains in it. Now I'm going to put a few here. I'm glad that God created fingers.
If you were doing this painting at home, would you spend longer than 2 hours on it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
If you were doing this at home, would you be working equally as flat, or would you be working
I would be
harder?
working, I have a studio and a gallery in my basement, but in the summertime, to take advantage of light, I work in my dining room, on the dining room table. I put an old beat-up tablecloth on it, and I work there. It's a southern
You
light.
still work flat, you don't work out of
No, no. Well, my table down in my gallery has a
tilt.
skeleton, but since the dining room table is flat, I work flat.
What color is that?
This is a medium gray.
Do you work from life or do you work from photography?
Pardon
Do you
me?
always work from life or do you ever work from photography?
I use photographs when necessary. And I take a lot of pictures of things. And I study the pictures, and then it kind of brings back my memory of what they look like, and really study the thing. And then after a while, I don't really need the photographs because it's all up in here.
Do you usually work with black and whites or color?
Pardon me?
When you do when you do shoot, do you shoot black and white or color?
Oh, I use color. I don't like to follow a photograph except if I'm doing a portrait or a figure study. But I use it as a helpful medium, because no matter how well the cameras are made today, they don't see like I see. Now I'm going to black to give it some pretty sharp darks here.
What is your attitude about black?
Pardon me?
Your attitude about black? Using black, obviously you're using it here, but is it something that you don't use often, or?
Oh, to sharpen things up a little, to give it more contrast. I'll also sometimes take a piece of tracing paper and for a darker color, make a little patch of this. Then take my finger here.
to the party or to the house?
I used the bright orange to show little flecks of possibly a nail that might have been stuck in the cement and is now rusting away. I'm adding these little flecks in here, like little pieces of the cement that might have caught some of the reflected sunlight. Just to soften those little flecks slightly to what I want, just kind of dab it with your small finger. Of course, I could use this one too. I'm gonna, you notice how nature works? You can have a cement structure or a stone structure. Like I come in from Pennsylvania and I look at these rock structures on the way to the tunnel. And there's a little ledge on the rock that could be maybe a half an inch in width. And there's something growing on it. So I'm going to add here just a little of such growth here to add a little zip to this thing. And I'm going to use my olive green again.
Do you ever work with soft pastels
Oh, yes.
or just the new pastels?
No, I work with Talon's Rembrandt pastels, my new pastels, and the Carbotello pencils. And that's about it.
Is the largest size sheet of paper you work on a full sheet?
Yeah. This is
Quarter?
about, I think it's a half a sheet. I'm working on a pastel at home now, because I live out in a farm area, and about 2 weeks ago, the farmer cut down the winter wheat. So all this straw is laying there. And it was a late afternoon with the bright sun shining, and I went out with my camera and I shot this straw, the rows of it and close-ups. And I'll tell you, I really enjoy, you put every piece of straw in there. And you're creating the whole thing. And now I have to put in there a beautiful color that complements the purple, and it's going to be sort of an orangish yellow. Now, don't ask me what kind of a flower this is. This is a Persa creation. I'm going to give this a very light touch of spray. Because as soon as this dries, in the old art director days, we used to take our triangle and go like this to speed up the drying. It also helps to cool you down a little bit. And I'm going to go into the root structure of the turnips.
Would you hold it up for a minute, because some of us might have to leave this for... Thank you. Because it's quite different from seeing it on
Yes, it is.
the television. Yeah, it changes the color.
The thicker the lead is softer.
Now I'm gonna do the part I enjoy most of all.
Sign it.
No,
No.
I want you to all watch this carefully. Now I'm gonna put the sunlight in it.
That's it.
And I want you to notice the difference in this thing, I hope.
Is that white that you're using?
This is white,
Yes.
and it'll make a tremendous, it really puts a zip into this thing.
Is that also white?
This is white.
we'll call it quits.
That last bid was for a sharp edge.
Pardon me?
The last bid was for a sharp contrasty edge.
Oh, yes, yeah. Thank you.
Still don't get it that when you see the real. Sure, you can see it.